The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Jog, you're good to go.
Thank you, Robert. Hello, everybody. Good evening or good afternoon and good morning to wherever you are. My name's Jog Raj. I'm one of the consultants here at Sandhill, and we're going to be presenting our Compass introduction here on how to standardize on a common approach to data governance. And assisting me are also Jeff Giles and Robert Lutton as well. And just for your records, the presentation here and the demonstration are going to be recorded, so you will be able to get to see the session afterwards. We'll send you the links in there. Also, in respect of questions, there is a chat box that we've got open as part of your dialogue. If you've got any questions, please put those in there, and Robert will keep an eye on those, and we'll probably get to answer some of your questions towards the end of the session. But if there's any urgent ones, then Robert will try and answer those as we go along in here. So with that in mind, let's start with the session that we've got. And the first thing really I wanted to sort of just quickly cover with you is to tell you that Sandhill as a company, we've been working with Irwin and Quest for the last 30 years, and we're really specialists in the data modeling and data governance area. And there's a lot more we can say to you about that, but given our time constraints, we'll keep that simple. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to kick off with a very, very simple question or a poll for you. And it'll be interesting to see what your responses are in respect of this. And Robert, if you could just run the poll, that would be good.
There you go, Jog. The poll is currently running. So if the audience would like to just put in your selection, do you believe your data is governed? A simple yes or no. We're just trying to get a pulse on the community, and we'll give it another minute. We're certainly seeing quite a difference in the statistics. Currently, the no is leading by 71%, and the yes leading by 29%. But it is switching there. So if you just we'll take another couple of minutes. We are seeing a change coming up. It's now anywhere from 30% believe that their data is managed, whereas 70% believe that it's not. So Jog, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll, and I'm going to show the results. I think actually if we can share the results there, the results of 30% believe that their data is governed, 70% believe that their data is not governed. So, Jog, I will pass it back to you.
Thank you. So that's response there is certainly in line with what we have experienced and what we've been seeing with a lot of the clients that we've been dealing with. And it's good that, for those that have are exercising good governance, then that's excellent. But there's always room for improvement. For those that haven't got effective governance, then this session will obviously be of value to you to see how you can actually go about achieving better governance on your assets in there. So with that in mind, let's go on and talk a little bit about what the problems are that people experience when they are trying to do data governance. And as you can see from this particular slide, when you're trying to do data governance, simply, it is very complex. And it's complex because there are many interacting and dynamically moving systems, processes, the content, the people involved in there. And so all these sort of data governance initiatives that people have, they tend to fail for some reason or another, and fail to fully deliver the expectations and the requirements of the stakeholders. And there's lots of reasons for this. Some of those can be for the fact that there might be a lack of suitable executors, or that there may be a lack of champions who can push the cause through, a lack of clarity on the roles and responsibilities for what people are supposed to do, unclear goals and what the objectives of a data governance system is. And so Compass, its intention is really, well, how do we demystify all of these pieces of motion and coordinate all of the moving parts to actually make your data governance exercise and your practice work much better and deliver in accordance with what you're expecting. So what we're looking to do is to provide a solution which will help you to improve and deliver value from your enterprise data governance solution. And in trying to do that and deliver a working practice, there's a number of ways that you can do it. And for those people who answered yes in the poll, obviously you've got something in place already, and that might have been achieved from the fact that you've got a practitioner or a data governance lead who has done this before and can effectively take you through and develop your data governance program. But for those people that haven't been able to achieve that or don't know where to go about it, it's often a case that they will build from scratch, and they'll start off with either hiring a consultant, cobbling together lots of sources like Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints and Word documents, and try and get that going from the sort of various free type of resources that people have. But I guess what we're really looking for is a bit like, Dorothy in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. What if you had your own yellow brick road to follow that would lead you to developing a good outcome for your data governance practice? And as part of delivering that, we know, and it's fairly sort of common sense, that some of the things that we need to do is to determine what we've already got, plan for the implementation and the changes that we want to make, deploy those, make the data governance practice run, and then keep an eye on it. And of course, in each one of these stages, what we're looking to do is perform various types of activities in here. So when we're planning, we need to know what are the requirements, what are the policies, the infrastructure that we need, how do we go about implementing it, developing a roadmap for deployment, etc. So there's lots of stages, and in each one of those stages, breakdown of tasks and activities that we've got to help us to deliver an effective data governance practice. And this is where Compass comes in, because rather than you looking at a sort of blank sheet and wondering, well, what do I do now? Its intention is really to provide you with the steps that you need to go through to deliver that. And of course, what are the values of doing this? Well, some of those are listed in here. We can increase the level of data literacy that people have, reduce the customer risk, leverage the value of the data that we've got. And so we've got these particular values that we can achieve in here, and below here we've got things that the toolset provides to helping you to deliver to those particular value outcomes in there. And what we have found when we've been dealing with all our different types of clients is that out there, people often think about using some sort of metadata management tools, data cataloging tools and data literacy tools, and they expect those to provide the sort of controls and provide a data governance practice, but really those tools aren't designed for that. Yeah. And where Compass comes in is it gives you the higher level understanding, the definitions, the capabilities to develop your data governance practice. And so defines the policies that are going to be followed, the standards that are going to be implemented, the roles, the processes. And all of those are there to help us to provide an oversight of the data. And that oversight then determines what it is you're actually capturing and using or capturing it as part of your metadata management technology tools, your data cataloging tools and your business glossary tools, etc. So they are different. So Compass fits in here to provide the data governance capability, but your metadata management tools exist to provide catalogs of the various assets that you've got in there. And what Compass does is helps you to organize the various things that you need at the data governance capability level and make sense of those, and also to provide a yellow brick road as we go through developing the governance practice that we want. So what actually is Compass? Well, Compass itself is a SaaS-based or a SaaS cloud-based system, yeah. and it provides a set of predefined guidance assets based on industry standards and best practices. So it's not something that we've just made up. It's based on particular industry standards where we have been able to take the best of those and create document templates, workflows, change management processes, compliance reviews. And each one of those helps you to set up and deliver your data governance program in there. And all of these assets sit inside a centralized knowledge-based repository. So, even for those people that answered yes in the poll, you could still use this because it helps you to centralize the data governance efforts that you've got, and everybody knows where to go to determine what they're supposed to be doing, when are they supposed to be doing it, etc. Yeah. And of course, we can also use Compass to help us to understand how effective our exercise is and how effective our practice is by looking at the performance management assets that we've got in there, by looking at the dashboard, the metrics, and the key performance indicators. And of course, the idea behind Compass is, as we were saying earlier, is to demystify the steps of your data governance program, provide clarity on what you're supposed to be doing, who's supposed to be doing it, and when we're supposed to be doing it. And by the fact that you are following a proven path, it means that you can accelerate the delivery of your data governance program, at the time, the cost, the skills. We can raise the visibility and collaboration in there. People can understand what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it. And of course, the approach can also be customized to your particular needs in there. So what actually is Compass then? Well, as we were saying, Compass is a way of organizing the data governance effort into a recognizable and easy to use framework that provides a structure for organizing your data governance assets. And so it becomes your single set of rules and processes for how to go about creating, collecting, storing, and using your data governance assets. And it provides a structure for those documents and the definitions for those based on, as we were saying previously, the best practice templates and experiences of the different practitioners that have gone into building the Compass framework. And so with that in mind, we're going to take a little bit of a sort of introduction into a use case scenario. And in this simple example, we've got a chief data officer or leader that's been tasked with creating a new data governance program for the purposes of delivering a data governance practice. So if we were to follow the activities that Compass proposes and suggests in there and guides us through, then what we would be looking to do is to look at a number of key data governance activities, and they're sort of listed here at a very, very high level. And obviously, the first thing that we need to do is to create some sort of data governance project plan. Now, obviously, you don't have to use Compass for this. There's lots of project management products out there which you could effectively use, but Compass also provides its own if you're interested in using that. And this details the start dates and the duration of the various activities involved in actually establishing your data governance practice. And it's there just to help you to organize the project for you. Now, if we've organized the project, well, what's the next step? Well, the next step is a very, very important one, which is to actually create the data governance authority. Now, at this stage, the Data Governance Authority is really the sort of steering committee that comprises the high-level executives and the stakeholders. And it's their job really to direct the data governance process across the entire organization and to set the strategy, the direction, the goals, the objectives, the deliverables, and to ensure that not only once have those objectives been defined, but the policies and the procedures which are developed are actually put into place. Now, there's no point in having a data governance practice and governance program set up if the results in terms of what people are supposed to be doing, who's supposed to be doing what, is completely ignored. Then we're not really making any progress in there whatsoever. And these are the very, very high-level people that need to be involved, who will provide the funding, provide the support at the executive level to make sure that this program is actually a success. And as part of Compass, Compass itself provides you with a template and examples of what the set of assets that you're likely to be creating. So things like the executive charter, the mission and the scope, and the accountability in there. And so Compass provides you with a predefined list or set of assets with their templates to help you create those deliverables that the Data Governance Authority is going to provide. And for the purposes of our presentation, I'm just going to introduce these at a very high level, and Jeff later on will go through those in a lot more detail. So if we've created the Data Governance Authority, well, the next step is really to determine the data strategy. And this, again, is necessary so that we can have an effective data governance team in there. And it involves writing your data governance charter with the assistance of all these stakeholders and anybody else who's going to be involved in any of the projects there, that we determine what the strategy itself is going to be. And again, what Compass does, it provides you with examples of the type of assets that you're going to be creating, as well as the templates in there. And so some of the deliverables are going to be your mission objectives, your requirements that you require to be fulfilled. What are the goals we're looking to achieve in there? And we've got various templates as part of Compass to help you to achieve those. So once we've determined the strategy, well, we need to set up the Data Governance Office and the working group, And in this, it means that what we need to do is define who are the data stewards in there, what are their responsibilities, what's the change management processes that we're going to follow, and what about the conflict and issue resolution processes? How are we going to communicate this content to the broader audience in there? And again, the Compass itself provides you with a number of topics in there to help you to define the stewardship, the data governance, RACI responsibilities, etc. in there. Now, if we've set up that and they are effectively working, part of their activities is going to be developing the policies and the procedures and or even the standards that people are going to be following. And these policies, they're not just going to be sort of made up in isolation. They've got to be defined, and then they've got to be approved by the steering committee, and then they need to be enforced. Otherwise, we're back to again, a lack of adherence to following these processes means that we're not really doing any effective governance. We're just creating assets for the sake of creating assets, and we really don't want to be doing that. So it's these policies and procedures which need to be implemented and followed by the data governance practitioners in there. And then step 6 means that we also need to establish a skilled data governance IT team. Now, they are the ones who are going to be doing some of the harder work in cataloging your metadata assets, cataloging your metadata, your business metadata, your technical metadata, your operational metadata, and cataloging that. But obviously they're not going to be doing that in isolation. They're going to be following the policies and the standards and the processes that have been defined previously by the working group in there. But again, we need to define who the data custodians are, the data engineers, and they become the people that are working effectively between your IT systems and also the data governance teams in here, because they need to be able to assist the IT people to make sure that the policies and procedures and standards that have been defined for the data are followed, but also to create those catalog of assets that the IT people can follow. So it's a very, very important role in there. And then, of course, as part of that, we need to define your RACI components, and these are going to be who has the responsibilities for creating your policies and your procedures and your processes. What about the changes that need to be made in the processes that we're going to be following at each stage, who's going to be approving it and reviewing it. So we can define what the data governance RACI components is. And so this helps to streamline your processes by ensuring that the team members and stakeholders, each one of them knows what they're supposed to be doing at each stage. And the tools help, because what they do is they give you an in-tray or a set of activities which would have been triggered by the process flows that are implemented within the tool sets within Compass. Yeah. And that's where these workflows come in, that we can define a change management workflow, a data a stewardship compliance review process in there. And when those processes are ran, then the different people that are involved in there, according to their RACI characteristics and what's been defined in there, they will go in there and look at these assets and understand what they are supposed to be changing as part of their policies or standards and processes in there. So we can define that as part of the processes in there. And then finally, we want to have a handle on how well our data governance program is progressing over time, and we want to see what's the rate of the development of the assets that we've got, the policies and the procedures, and how many are at different stages in there. And so Compass can provide you with some dashboards which give you some information about the progress of the creation of the assets for your data governance exercise in there. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to our colleague, Jeff, but also, I'm going to hand over to Jeff, and he'll give you the demonstration, and then after the demonstration, we'll follow back up with the concluding questions and summary in here. So with that, over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jog. So what I'm going to do is just take you into Compass and show you it in action, actually running, and describe in some more detail some of the feature and functionalities that Jog talked about in the slide presentation. So the first thing I want to point out is that Compass is a web-based interface. That is, it's in the cloud. You don't actually have to install anything on your local machine except a web browser, and it runs on lots of different platforms, Windows or a Mac. And it does have security, so you have the ability to determine who can log in. So I'm just going to log in here right now. There we go. And then here is the main home screen of Compass. Now, Compass has, as Jog described, a framework. Now, this area within the gray box, this is essentially your governance area. Now, we all know that data governance is just one part of an entire data management infrastructure. So governance actually relates back to the data architecture, operations, quality, and strategy. But the area that we're concentrating on here is just the data governance part. So the way that the framework is sort of laid out here is planning is just getting yourself ready to build out the program. Implement part is basically creating those artifacts that you're going to use, and then deploy is actually rolling it out and operationalizing it. And then from there on, you are monitoring its performance to see how well you're doing. So starting with the Data Governance Authority. In this area, we're talking about the high-level starting point for developing your data governance. Now, every section within Compass has an overview section, which is primarily just giving you sort of information about the topical area. And one of the things that I'll call out is this diagram here. It's very similar to what you might find in the DM BOK, in that there are inputs, there are outputs, there are controls, there are resources. So inputs essentially are what needs to go into this particular process. Outputs are what you expect to get when the process is complete. Resources are who or what has to be involved to get this done. And of controls are more like constraints. What rules do we have to adhere to, or what are the conditions that must be met in order to make this work? But the other thing is that each page here within Compass is built on a kind of a template. So you'll see here this item here, hierarchy and context. I can use this little caret symbol here, and I can begin to close up some areas that I might not be interested in, or expand them when I want to. So I can make the screen less busy if I need to. So once we go back out here, we could see information about creating a business case, the executive charter, what is the mission and scope, accountability. So if I drill into, let's say, executive charter, what I can see here is details about creating the executive charter, as well as the full map for it. Now, any item that's underlined that actually shows up in red is the link to the lexicon that we have for it. So if, let's say, somebody doesn't quite understand what is meant by compliance review or data stewardship, they can click one of these hyperlinks and it will go to a detailed definition of what that is. And as we scroll down here, you can see the inputs and the outputs are also in a tabular format as well as the graphical format. So you can see in both layouts what is required. RACI level here, you can see by RACI role, if we're going to develop a charter, you know, what is accountable, what is responsible. And we also have consulted and informed in here as well, but you'll have a general idea of how all of this information sort of relates. And then other things that you can do here is you can actually associate other artifacts. Like, let's say, for instance, you've developed a charter in Microsoft Word and you want to associate that with this particular page. You have the ability to attach different files and different templates so that you can click them and it will actually go out and either open up an instance of Microsoft Word or go to another website, or maybe even a data cataloging software. So you can associate this. So it doesn't work in just like a vacuum. It does relate back to other things that you may be working with. So on the DG authority side of things, this is the different areas that will help you build that structure. Now, moving on, policies and standards, of course, the heart and core of building a data governance program. So the thing about the policies here is we obviously can't have every single policy that anybody could ever think of. It's simply too broad and too deep for us to include everything. However, there are some basic policies that every data governance program should have. One of the most obvious is a data privacy policy. I should have a data privacy policy. We provide a basic data privacy policy with all the details about the various processes that you have to look at within your data privacy. So it's sort of a starting point, a jump start, if you will, for building out your own data privacy policy. Like, you could just accept this as is and say, yeah, this works pretty well with what we want to do, or these buttons up here will allow you to edit or modify. So you can create new policies, or you can edit or modify one of the existing policies that we have in here to make it fit the way that you want to operate data governance in your environment. So back at the data policy level here, there are a number of different policies that you can work with. Now let's take a look at this implement part of the framework. Governance management. So obviously governance itself is sort of a management technique. So what we're really talking about here is, how do we manage change within data governance? So we're really talking about here, if there's, let's say, for instance, a definition, and we're not sure if we all agree on the definition, then you can actually launch a workflow and take that through the data governance processes that you've developed, and then come to some conclusion. You can even insert your own change management workflow. We have one in here describing how a sample change management workflow would be conducted within governance. So essentially, we get to govern the governance through the workflow here. Data stewardship, a very important concept within data governance. And again, you see, we still have the same layout, so it's very easy to work yourself through it. Here, a more involved and detailed RACI matrix where we have some basic roles established. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can look at this. Sometimes people will use different words other than data steward. They may use, let's say, I think I had a customer call them data deputies or data trustees, but essentially they're performing a data stewardship function. So we have different levels of stewardship and other stakeholders that are also involved. So the RACI part here is created to help you get a general idea about how stewardship might occur within data governance. And let me come back out here and look at Business Glossary. Now, Business Glossary is also another core component to doing data governance. And when we look at Business Glossary, one of the issues that a lot of people have is, how do I know whether a business definition is a good business definition? I'm quite sure a lot of you have come across the business definitions of the customer identifier is the identifier of the customer, which is not very helpful. So here it talks about how do I develop a business term, how do I go through some compliance for qualifying whether it's a good business term. And there's also some areas in here where we've attached like things like best practices, where you can go out and there might be a reference on best practices on developing a business glossary definition, business glossary name, and things like that. Metadata management obviously is key to data governance, because metadata is, of course, gives you lots of details about metadata. And as Jog mentioned, that metadata comes in different flavors, such as the business metadata, such as what is the business term, what is the definition of that business term, but also technical metadata, such as what is the abbreviated name of that particular term, and where is it stored, in what system might I find it. So understanding how you're going to manage the metadata is also a very important part of developing your data governance program. And then lastly, we can talk about how you might want to roll it out. So the deployment part is saying, okay, well, I've thought about governance and now I'm ready to roll it out. Now, one of the things that we come across with data governance is that some people will go out and buy like a cataloging tool and then discover that there's really no policies in it. There's no standards in it. There's a workflow engine in there, but no real details on how I want to structure my workflow or what roles I might need and who's going to fill those roles. That's completely empty. So one of the things that we stress with Compass is to understand how you want to do data governance before you spend the money on a very expensive data cataloging tool. I'll admit they're very important and extremely useful, but you should have a lot of your data governance details established before you purchase your cataloging tool or data governance tool. So let's take a look at the roadmap part of things here. You can set, you want to be able to communicate data governance. Now this is an area where a lot of people sort of gloss over. If people aren't involved, that is, if they don't understand what's going on, then there's usually some kind of pushback because they don't really understand what you're attempting to do. So there's some details about how you want to roll out your communications plan to let other people know within the organization what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing. So that's an important part of doing your data governance as well. Education and training. Now I'm going to touch on this very briefly. Robert will talk about this in more detail later, but it's important to be what they call data literate. Now, when we talk about data literacy, it's just having the foundational understanding of what data is and why data is important. And you kind of need that before you start doing data governance, because when I start putting people into the stewardship position, I need them to understand, why do we need a good definition for a business term? Why do I need a glossary of business terms? And the other details about data, so that they can become efficient in their data stewardship role in your governance program. Because obviously your governance program, you want your governance program to be an ongoing and sustainable idea, so that you can continually improve it and make it better. So if I come back to the home page here, I'm going to just pop out to a dashboard here where I can show some process information here. Now, this dashboard is really talking about how well we're doing data governance. One of the things that happens in data governance is that you end up with some bottlenecks. For instance, there may be things that need to be reviewed, and you need to make sure that those things are reviewed in a timely fashion. Otherwise, things start to back up. So we want to be able to monitor how many issues need to be reviewed, how long has it been since it was reviewed, why is it not being reviewed, and it could be that we have to push something up through some kind of escalation process so that we can deal with it more efficiently. But that's one of the reasons why we have the dashboard in here. It's not like a data quality dashboard. That's a different thing for just the data quality component of your enterprise data management. This is just talking about governance processes and how well are they working. And then from here, we can take a look at dashboards that relate to, let's say, a Gantt chart. Now, as Jog mentioned, the Gantt chart itself is just sort of setting up this structure. You could use Microsoft Project or something, but essentially what we're showing here is sort of the dependency structure of, I need to have a charter set up first before I can start to do some of these other activities that might be on this list. And I'll expand this out so you can actually see it. So different things that I need to do. So at least from this perspective, you could get a general idea of the order of which things need to be completed, and then you can start to substitute your own dates and durations in this area. And obviously you can zoom it to fit, and you can zoom in and zoom out, etc. With this view. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Jog to finish up.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Jeff, for the demonstration there. Now, for the demonstration that's concluded, we do have a very quick poll. So again, Robert, over to you to ask the question here.
Sure. I've gone ahead and launched a poll. So if we could ask our attendees to take a quick look and select one of the options. Are you looking to establish a data governance program? Yes, no, or expand what you currently have. So we're just giving the folks a minute or two to see if they have a data governance program. About 40% are saying yes. 30% are saying no, and 30% are looking to expand what they currently have. This may change, but I'm just taking a look. Looks like it's pretty set. People know what they've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the poll, and then I'm going to share the response jog. So you should be able to see that and see that 40% are well on their way, and 60% are looking to expand what they have or looking to establish a program. So with that, Jog, I will pass it back to you.
Great, thank you for that, Robert. So again, that's pretty well in line with the first poll question that we had, where people were looking to implement a data governance program in here. And so if again, you know, you're looking to establish this, then it's not something that you can do sort of just spontaneously. You have to think about what you need to do, be guided, and have to use some good practices and previous guidance in here. And that's where Compass really comes in, you know, to help you to get to your results quickly. And with that in mind, what we have found as a sort of conservative, a very conservative effort, you know, of the value of using a tool to help you to develop your data governance practice is this sort of calculations here, where if we look at the cost of the actual build, if you do, you know, following a process of DIY, do it yourself, yeah, then the amount of effort required to implement a data governance program is quite considerable, and the time taken and the resources taken is, again, you know, quite considerable. And what we're looking to do with Compass is, instead of having a high build right you know, at the or a sort of slow build and cost over a long period of time, what we're looking to do is to shorten that period of build and to develop the governance so that you can achieve your value from your governance practice earlier rather than later. Because again, you know, if we can show early results, then we're more likely to get funding and buy-in and continuous progression and development of the practice in there. So that's the idea there, is that Compass helps you to shorten the time period to start getting effective results, and also the actual costs involved in building your own data governance program to reduce those costs in there. And again, I say, you know, these are sort of conservative costs, but again, we can elaborate a little bit further on these if you engage with us. And so, as a quick summary in here, the idea of Compass and the presentation that we've been showing you here today is really, Compass is trying to sort of take away from a blank sheet of what am I supposed to be doing, when am I supposed to be doing this, who's involved, what are the deliverables, getting away from a blank sheet of paper and actually having a guided process, a sort of yellow brick road approach, as it were, to actually developing your data governance program and delivering your enterprise and delivering your practice in there. So it demystifies the steps in there, because the steps are defined, we know what they are, other people have trodden along this path. It can help you to accelerate that. If you've got a centralized repository, a centralized tool, it raises the visibility and the degree of collaboration that you've got, and helps everybody understand what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing, so you overall, everybody understands what their role is and their involvement in there. And of course, again, you know, if people clearly understand what they're supposed to be doing, then again, that's only going to aid in delivering your data governance program in there. And of course, the end result is that that we get a better set of data, and we can also use the governance practice to help us to measure and qualify the quality of the data-led projects, the business intelligence reports, and any applications and developments that we have. Because at the end of the day, you know, the purpose of your enterprise or your enterprise-wide practice here is to improve the quality of the data, so that the users, whoever they are, feel greater confidence in the assets they're using, and also to give them the opportunity to realize better insights and more better improved processes and offerings and services that can be made by virtue of having a better understanding of the content that you've got in there. And as part of that, there is a final slide that we've got in here. You know, if you're looking for some additional assistance in actually having a training course where you want to learn how to do better data governance, there is some on-demand training available. And again, this is, you know, data literacy for the knowledge worker, explaining who the roles are, what they're able to do in there, and what this course itself will deliver for you. And again, if you want to know more about this, then please do make contact with us. And that gives us just maybe a few seconds, if we've got any questions and answers, And I don't know, Robert, if there were any in the chat.
Yeah, just I know we've got this scheduled for 11:45. Just a couple of questions come in. If people have got any other questions, please use the question on the dialogue on the right-hand side. One of the questions that came in is Compass a data cataloging tool, and is it part of Irwin's data cataloging tool? Jeff.
Ah, okay. Yep.
Joe.
Sorry. No, Jeff. Nope. Okay.
Helps to be off of mute when I answer questions. Yeah, as I mentioned, the governance part sort of informs the data cataloging tool. So you can integrate Compass into a data cataloging tool, but Compass itself is not a data cataloging tool. For instance, we talk about a business glossary and how to establish one, but the management of all those terms and the lineages and the linkages is best managed in a tool like the Data Intelligence Suite from Irwin.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. And just one final question. How would one evaluate Compass?
Jeff?
Sure. Yeah. You can have access to Compass and click through the topics and read through them and work with it for a while and determine whether you find it useful for your implementation.
So that's a trial which is available then, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Jog, you got a last slide, which is contact information, yeah?
Absolutely.
So those are all the questions. If you want to go to the contact slide, I'll let you wrap it up, Jog.
Great. So as we were saying, well, we hope that you found our session useful. As we were saying, the recording will be available for you, and as well as the slides. And obviously, if you want to engage with us on any follow-up questions, or indeed if you want to have a trial of the software or any other matters, then here's the contact details. Please feel free to contact us, and we'll do our best to help you. And with that in mind, thank everybody for attending the session, and we hope you found it useful.
Excellent. Thank you, Jog. Thank you, Jeff. And I saw a last-minute question come in there. We'll get that response back out to Shiva directly. I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks very much indeed. Bye.